I just said receive too. I didn't say um, discriminate and then receive what you want. I didn't say that. I just said receive. That might not have been what you did, right? One of the things that we'll find in a practice like this is the things that we receive may not always be those things that we want. Sometimes they're what we need, but we don't really want. They may not often enough be what we want, or know we want, or are ready to admit that we need, or something like that. But it's it's much harder to plainly and openly receive. Like a flower petal doesn't get to decide if it's snowing or raining or sunny. It's just it's in the receiving shape. It's gonna get whatever the day brings. It could be an animal walking by peeing on it. It could be morning dew. I mean, it could be sand and dust. I don't, whatever it could be. A bird, a beetle. It doesn't really get to say, oh no, oh, let me just see what it's going to. No, no, thanks. That's not, it has avocado. No, I just, you know, like that's really practicing discernment, discrimination, preference, which is okay if somebody's offering you food and you can't eat and you have allergies or whatever, but it's not quite the practice of receive in this pure sense that I suggested it as. I call it xylem and phloem after the circulatory system of a tree. A tree lands, tree seed lands, I guess essentially randomly, right? It's pooped out or blown over or kicked or tumbles or washed or, it just ends up where it ends up. And I don't know how many seeds a tree drops in a year, like 65,000, 200,000, like it's a massive amount. And there's going to be on average one tree that matures from all that. But a lot of those, end up in a shaded spot or on top of a rock where they can't put down roots, or in poor soil, or something a little too pHy, or right in the middle of a trail that it's doing fine, but we kind of know it's not going to make it. It's right in the middle of a trail, uh, or right in the shade of another tree. And those trees do the same thing as the tree that ends up in this ideal spot, the perfect soil and moisture and light and all the rest of it. They all do the same thing. They just practice receiving. A lot of them don't get what they would have wished for soon enough, often enough, or they get something they don't want for sure, too much of, right? Or whatever. But they don't get to practice moving. They just practice receiving until they don't make it or they do. That's what they do. If there's a deer out there, the deer's like, you know what, slim pickings. I'm gonna take a walk and see if I can find some food down the way, or some water, or less coyotes, or more sun, or animals practice discerning and discriminating and developing opinions and then basing their actions on them, saying not enough mates here, not enough food, too much sun, too much wind, whatever. And they just try their hand different places. Um, A plant doesn't. It's planted. It's just right there. But it doesn't say, oh, this is so shady. I'm just, I'm not going to, no. It just does this. Maybe not as well, maybe not for as long, maybe not to maturity, but it still does treeness, just like every other tree. So, the practice is to release, not to go through and do the low hanging fruit of release or let go of what Steve would give you credit for releasing and you never liked, and so win win. It's just to release what isn't sitting here well. And the receiving is not to say, you don't go to your mailbox and meet the mail lady every day and say, no thanks, no thanks, no, oh, that looks good. Like everything, and some of it's bills, some of it's a mail for your neighbors, I mean, some of it's something you want. Like, but you don't get to say, oh, that's good. Oh, what's that? No, 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 no. Oh, I'll take right. You don't get to do that. You just here's my mail. Oh man, right. And so the practice of receiving is also this practice of kind of recognizing a lot of what you receive, you might not recognize it. It might not have been your first choice. It might not have been any of your choices. The practice is to receive. And we've all lived long enough in our lives to know that quite often we receive things that on receipt we would argue are unwanted, unhealthy, undesirable. And it turns out, oh yeah, I'm kind of glad I got that when I did, I'm glad my dad was so strict because now I, never miss work or something, like we grow into this sort of recognition. Going through the practice and kind of recognizing that what you um, are ready to release is not really the same as just practicing release. Right? It's kind of like, if you hire somebody to clean up your attic, it gets cleaned up a lot better than if you do it. Because you're going to be like, oh, maybe I can, let me just go through that kind of. But like somebody else would do it in a couple hours. You're like, I feel so, I'm so glad you did that. But if I was there to do it, I'm like, oh, hang on, let me just, oh, we can't get rid of that. I only have three of those left, right? So the the practice of release, the practice of receiving is just trying to move towards some elegance of the, the posture and the presence of the practice. Like I just want to be doing no more than this. I'm just sitting here well, breathing well. That's really all I'm doing. I'm just kind of just checking out. I don't really need that, right? All I'm doing is this. So I don't need that anger I still have about my first husband. Don't need that. That's not part of sitting here. I don't. I'm not calling out and wishing and online ordering things I want to receive. I'm just open to what comes. Maybe it's inspiration. Maybe it's creativity. Maybe it's another breath. Maybe it's something existential. I don't know. When we think about what our eyes do, our eyes um, have the potential to see everything that's in the visible spectrum in this room, in this perspective I have. And I kind of feel like I'm seeing the whole room right now, but I'm only focusing on where it says university. Like that's my focus is only in one place at all times. And I fool myself into thinking it's all in focus. And the moment I want to know if something was my eyes move. So my eyes are young and they're looking and deciding and determining what I see. They're active. They're hunting. That's what they do. But your hearing is not the same. They're just receiving whatever sounds there are. That's not the same as listening, which is, you know, are you connecting your consciousness to it? Right? Maybe your consideration. But your ears are yin. They're just like the flower petals I was saying. They're just receiving whatever there is. So if there was a gunshot or something loud, we'd all just, we can't pre-decide. Oh, I don't want to have that happen. Just whatever. And if a bird makes a sound or somebody comes in, like we hear what we hear. So we're looking to have sort of the hearing version of the receiving, not the looking version of the receiving.
Oh, that's such a good way to say it. That is what we were doing. We're looking for what to let go
Hmm.
of.
That's the hunting, not the gathering. One of the very few possessions in the world of many monks is a bowl, which is a physical representation of ready to receive. That's what it is, right? And they might have like three possessions, like their robes and a bowl, like not much. And the bowl is going to collect alms and it's going to collect their porridge, but it's a physical representation of open and receive. And you don't hold this out as a beggar and then go, oh, is that a Canadian quarter? You just do this. And maybe somebody spits in it. And maybe somebody fools you. They make you think they put money in, they don't. Maybe a kid puts a bug in, or, maybe somebody puts a lot in. That's my job isn't to um, judge and decide and accept. Accept is something that follows receive. We're not practicing that. We're practicing receiving. Okay. Time-wise, I'm not sure if we'll get a lot further. Sorry. I think I rambled. I want to share an analogy with you.